Hello, good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Extra Central, I beg your pardon, as we look forward to another brand new day. Most importantly, right before we came on air, conversations were indeed on, especially myself and Osarage. First off was, we don't know why we're wearing the same color, by the way. I think that took me off in a bit. Maybe we should have a memo for a night before to take a look at what we're putting on. But then again, aside from that, there's another major conversation that's ongoing now. IPMAN agreeing with Dangote to finally lift PMS and, of course, the other products as well. And then there is a former ally of President Bola Tinubu who is now talking against him in public and saying that you don't need to be a scientist. I'm talking about former governor as well, Abubakar, who's also saying that you don't need to be a scientist to see that the economy is going down.
Absolutely.
These are conversations that we're looking forward to have later on.
Yes, amongst many other things, thanks for joining us. We encourage you, as always, to be a part of the conversation. Simply join us via social media at News Central TV. Let us know your thoughts on any of the things that come up on in our conversations this morning. We'll also, of course, open up the phone line sometime around 8 a.m. so you can also share with us your views on these stories that we bring up. I am Osaugie Ogbawan. It's a huge pleasure to have you this morning. Yes, Dangote is back in the news. IPMAN, of course, once again is back in the news. Rauf Arabishala, of course, just like Joe had mentioned, having his views aired out on the current economic situation in Nigeria. But if you remember during the campaign season 2023, and maybe even prior, there were already signs that Rauf Arabishala seemed to be having a fallout with Nigeria's current president, Bola Tinubu, back then. Right coming from the Buhari administrations where he was minister back then. But we, of course, will x-ray these things and see if there's any meat to some of these stories. Aside that, something that went very viral yesterday, once again, is the conversations concerning the church and productivity, concerning night vigils and productivity, with a pastor here in Lagos, Nigeria, airing his views, once again criticizing Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi for his views concerning productivity and the church. What was it called? Is that night shift? Yes, night shift, or night vigils rather, to night shifts. These are some of the things that Nigerians spoke about, very, very much yesterday, with many people taking sides with, of course, the idea of a more productive society, the idea of having Nigerians becoming more productive, creating more avenues with which they can work and they can earn, compared to those who, of course, spend more time and productive hours in church or in religious, with religious bodies, basically. And so these things, amongst many other things, we'll be x-raying this morning as we go on with the program. Much later, we're also going to be talking about the frolicking that I mentioned yesterday, the CJN, and of course, the accusations of the judicial system frolicking with politicians. We would also bring that up sometime today. But let's quickly share with you what our top stories are, and of course, then bring you breakfast headlines.
This morning, our top stories, we'll be looking at the Ondo governorship election, a countdown as it begins, no doubt. We'll also be analyzing Nigeria's economic downturn and get to see, just like we rightly mentioned, even a former ally speaking up recently. IPMAN, Dangote reach agreement on direct petrol supply. This is pretty much good news for Nigerians. The residents outline priorities for new governor of Pebolo and the drama that's ongoing there in Edo State. And we'll also bring to you the front pages of the newspaper. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. Now, as Senator Monday Okpebolo and Dennis Idahosa take over the helm of affairs in Edo State, they have been tasked to prioritize security and citizens' welfare. This call comes on the eve of the Edo State governorship inauguration ceremony in Benin, the state capital. News Central correspondent Austin Azu has filed in this report.
All is not set for the inauguration ceremony of the governor-elect and deputy of Edo State here at Samuel Gbemundia Stadium of 20,000 seating capacity in Benin. Behind me and beside me, you can see the ongoing decoration and beautification of the venue for the event slated for Tuesday, 12th November 2024. Benin City, the capital of Edo State, has a new look as billboards featuring President Bola Tinubu and other APC stalwarts welcome visitors to the historic city along major roads. Even as the state gets set for its incoming leadership, some residents of the state have expressed divergent views in assessing the outgoing administration of the state.
The assessment is that I'm one of those who believe it's a failure. Because of where I came from, in Oriomo, it was not developed.
In the past 8 years, the state was inundated with what I would call the graphical representation of development. You've gone around the city, you will agree with me that even the strongest SUVs can't survive the state of the roads we have. So
he did well. He did very okay. I'm satisfied with whatever he did. I'm okay.
The former governor, for the little I observed, he performed very well.
For others, setting the agenda for the incoming administration is a greater priority.
Advice to who is coming now: be like a man. Don't listen to outside talking. Do the best you can able to do.
We pray that all hands will be on deck and support the incoming governor to achieve his objective by giving those people what they desire: good governance and food on everybody's table.
The incoming government will look where the effort from come, where make us vote him in. Then he will start from there to repair. First of all, insecurity.
this administration, through the five-point agenda, we put in place those plans that we, in less than 1 year, we'll be to show positive changes in the life of our people.
These demands and requests by residents of Benin and Edo State hoped will be considered and implemented by the incoming administration of Edo State. In Benin, for News Central, I'm Austin Azu.
Well, great conversation there. And most importantly, there are rumors, though, allegedly stating that it's going to cost 5 billion naira to organize that. We'll talk about that later on. Nigerian economy suffers continued loss of big and small companies, mostly due to its volatile state. Recently, the Nigerian economy took another blow as South African retailer Pick n Pay announced its exit from the market. The company's CEO, Sean Summers, stated that the company is leaving Nigeria as part of its broader strategy following economic challenges, currency volatility, and rising operational costs in Nigeria.
Now, multiple multinationals have left Nigeria by either scaling down operations, transferring ownership, or selling their stakes completely. Research shows that over 30 companies, including multinationals and local firms, have exited Nigeria since 2020. These exits have raised concerns about the business climate in the country and its ability to attract and retain foreign investment. Joining us is investment banker and public affairs analyst Nameka Obiareri. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Again.
All right. I'm going to start with, asking about the reasons that, were stated by, some of these companies, the volatility of the Nigerian currency and, of course, its current economic state. Are these big enough reasons to exit or at least downscale the presence of some of these multinationals in Nigeria? Or are they really just being impatient?
The reason they cited is very big enough for them to exit. There is no business in Nigeria or anywhere in the whole world, no honest businessman or entrepreneurship can thrive under the atmosphere of price and forex instability and volatility. Number two, if you look at the Nigerian market, it used to be a market that houses very big consumer market, a consumer market with our size and population and everything, that any person that is involved in the fast consumer goods market will quickly want to play in. But of course, based on the economic climate and conditions, even the purchasing power of the average Nigerians has atrociously tanked in such a way that even those who have the goods or whoever even managed to stay afloat will not have the right amount of customers or number of customers to patronize them. There was a time in this country when we had a middle class population of over 4 million. Middle class population that decently earned between $110,000 to $170,000 per annum, and who could afford to purchase brand new things and all the rest of them. So the reasons that they cited, beyond just price instability, forex instability, beyond the lower purchasing power of the average Nigerian, which has hampered consumption, there is also the issue of insecurity, the issue of infrastructure and power deficit. Of course, you've seen over the last 1 year, we've had over 12 national grid failures and all the rest of them. The cost of production in Nigeria alone is outrageous. I was discussing with somebody this morning. I said, logistics cost in Nigeria alone is one of the reasons why we have the kind of atrocious price instability that we have in Nigeria. I run one of the biggest agro outfits in the southeast of Nigeria. We are into all agro value chain production. And I'll give you an example. To produce a bag of 50 kg of rice in our mill at an average cost of 75,000 naira. But by the time you move it to the market, logistic cost takes it to almost about 110,000 naira per 50 kg bag. This is not supposed to be so. And that is why we are where we are today. So basically, it's actually going to pour. It's just started drizzling because there is nothing within the horizon that shows that those in power across the 3 tiers of government are doing anything to mitigate the reasons why these companies left Nigeria. Nigeria is a place that takes the right boxes for any investor to play in. If we have the right political governance, physical security, conducive environment to enable them thrive. Look at those that have left, Michelin, Dunlop. You ask yourself, what are the raw materials that are used to produce some of the goods that they produce here? They are all 99% in abundance in Nigeria. Do we have the market to consume what they produce? Yes. Why did they leave? The same issue. No investor plans credibly how to invest and how to expect a return when you are not even certain of the variables of production, the factors of production. No, but if you watch the Nigerian market over the last how many years, you will discover clearly that most companies suffered losses, not because they lost money in operation. They suffered losses because of the forex instability. Take, for instance, Nestle. Take, for instance, PZ. If you look at PZ, it's a conglomerate, a multinational. If you look at PZ operation across the world, Nigeria is the only place where PZ actually had real EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation allowance of over 33%. In other countries, about 17%. But they got wiped out because of the forex instability, because of the devaluation of the naira. Over a period of 1 year, they lost practically everything they made, including the shareholders fund. And they exited. No country, no investment, no honest investor who is not into any shady business will thrive in an environment with so much uncertainty, with so much instability as we have it in Nigeria. So it's so unfortunate. Can we remedy the situation? Yes, we can remedy it. But are those in authority willing and ready to remedy the situation? The answer is emphatically zero.
Okay, so we're going to come to, I think that might be the next angle to look at, the steps that are being taken or must be taken to remedy the situation. Would it be a sensible argument to say that these companies, the PZs, the Diageos, the Microsoft, everyone, who have left, are simply being impatient and they would regret it, very, very shortly, because the vice president has been in a few countries, the president as well, selling, Nigeria as an investment environment and trying to get more companies and more countries to invest in Nigeria, because, of the investment climate here. And so are these companies being impatient, and will they regret it in the next, very short while?
These companies are not being impatient, and they are not going to regret anything because there is nothing in the horizon that shows clearly that those who purport to govern us understand the enormity of the challenges that stare us in the face. You know, it's quite unfortunate that rather than put in place policies and measures to bring in and retain those who are already here, we are busy wasting taxpayers' money, flying around and jockeying all over the world, looking for investments. I'll give you another example. Gino Food. Gino Food is a multinational worth over $2 billion. Gino saw the great opportunities here in Nigeria, and they went across all the tomato value chain production. They went to Kebbi State, set up massive tomato processing factory. Gino Food even went into backward integration, commissioned farmers to do tens of thousands of hectares of land of tomato farm gates. Everything was looking well. Gino invested tens of millions of dollars and had plans of expanding the investment to about $200 million. One night, bandits invaded their center. They were very lucky to extract their expatriates. Gino had cut their outlook on Nigeria, and they have put a stop on that backward integration. This is what the vice president and those in Abuja should be tackling. Insecurity, they don't even care about it. I'll give you another example. Cosmos Maduka Charis went to Anambra State to build a massive rice milling plant. Rice milling plant that had capacity of about 40,000 tons per annum. Today, that factory is producing at way below capacity. It's not even meeting, it's not even getting raw materials, paddy rice materials, to be able to meet up 30% of their milling capacity. In a country where we have governance that works across all the 3 tiers of government, the local government chairman, the governor of Anambra State, and government of Anambra State, what they would have done was to put in place missions, community diaspora, private-public partnership framework to create 4,000 hectares of paddy rice farm within the localities where that mill operates, to provide him with paddy rice to enable him meal rice that will be very, very affordable for those within that community. I am sure nobody is thinking about it. Look around you. The power infrastructure in Nigeria is not working. Egypt, over a period of 7 years, ramped up over 25,000 megawatts of power generation. Egypt practically has 100% electricity cover. The whole of Egypt. Egypt has a massive landmass like Nigeria. Egypt has 100 million people. We have been battling with power grid failures every year. Same story. Common sense is common sense that we have been operating a system that does not work. Government come, government go. They've never thought it wise for us to unbundle the power architecture of Nigeria in such a way we will do away with this national grid thing and allow for regional and state grids so that people can actually produce and distribute within their locality without putting things on the national grid. Nobody's thinking about it. I give you another example. The cost of logistics. 80% of mode of transport is marine. The other day in Imo State, the governor of Imo State gathered people, all manner of people, 2 years ago that they wanted to dredge Atlantic all the way to Orashi. A project that will have cost normally under $156 million, because I am privileged to have served in a private committee that had a plan to dredge to do that small channel, because I was practically one of the very, very leading private sector that contemplated it. Nobody in the Southeast among the governors or those who gathered to clap for what was put in place to enhance movement of goods into the Southeast of Nigeria, to move a container from Lagos State to any part of the Southeast today, it's about 2.5 million. That project would have been abandoned under a mission, community, private-public partner arrangement that will benefit everybody. Nobody is thinking about how do we dredge all the way from Escarborough to Jeba to create waterways. Nobody is thinking the most lucrative rail routes in Nigeria that has been already studied, 200 million tons of cargo traffic per annum, 500 million passenger traffic per annum, about $2.3 billion annually in revenue. that can easily be done under the same private-public partnership arrangement under a DBOT of 45 years. The Lagos, Shagamu, Ijebu-Ode, Ore, Benin, Onitsha, Asaba, Onitsha, Owerri, Port Harcourt, circle back Aba, Umuahia, Okigwe, Enugu, back to Abakaliki and Ebonyi State, back to Onitsha to Asaba. A railroad that will take about $5.2 billion to do. We can easily generate the funding to do it. The governors within these contiguous areas are not bothered about how they can create such infrastructure. We lose about 3.5 trillion naira worth of our agro commodities to post-harvest losses. Yeah. None of the governors or the local government chairmen are thinking about how we can produce storage facilities and how we can produce about 25,000 logistics trucks, chiller trucks to stop this. Nobody is thinking about anything to enhance productivity. You saw the other day, they gathered, 19 governors are opposing the new VAT regime that we put in place. All they are after is how they can collect, share, and loot. Nobody cares about how do we even enhance productivity. Bring food to the table before we talk about sharing.
Well, Mr. Berry, if we take a look at the tax reforms, there seems to be some freelance, if you put it that way, or some opportunity given to new companies that are coming on board. Take, for instance, 4 years of no taxation, especially if you're coming into the country to engage in businesses. Also, small and medium businesses are equally being looked after to enjoy these taxes, free taxes. Don't you think this would in any way help to recondition and restation the country and get us back on track, especially economically, if we look at it that way?
I agree totally with you. I have taken time to go through that document, and I can bet my fingers that 90% of those who oppose that document have never gone through it. It's just a bandwagon effect. The only thing that they saw there was, the VAT waterfall that was supposed to be based on derivatives. So those of them who are destroying their environment, who are wrecking it, who will not provide a conducive environment for enterprises to set up for consumption to happen within their localities, are only afterward they will get. I have taken that. If you look at, and let me just dissect two major inputs in that document. One was the Nigerian Revenue Service establishment bill there, which will have helped us to streamline revenue collection in Nigeria and remove the multiple taxations. We know that there is so much corruption with the very multiple layers of MPS collecting different revenues, from MPA to NIMASA to the Customs and Excise Department. These are centers of wicked corruption. By this, if these guys have sat down to look at this bill, they will have seen clearly that basically what we have done was to streamline this thing. I give you an example. In 2002, Nigeria had over $62 billion import. Of the customs will have generated nothing less than $10 billion. But they did only about $2 billion, which simply means over $8 billion was stolen. But if with the right arrangement as have been put in place under this bill, customs will be restricted to just doing their border post of check-in and check-out. And then when you do this, you will not see them again in the hinterland creating nuisance all over the place. The same thing with the VAT regime. If the VAT regime is derivative-based, people will now be forced to make their environment conducive. I'll give you an example. Go to Kano. His is busy destroying everything that has to do with alcohol consumption and beverages, destroying shops. But the same Hisba, the same Kano, that have created the physical environment that will not allow people to set up business in their environment, want to collect the highest tax on beverage consumption of alcohol because of the kind of what Babila physical federalism that will run. What I expected these 19 governors and the rest of them opposing this thing to do is to sit down, look at that document. Any reasonable patriotic Nigerian or governor or local government chairman or senator should be thinking, what do I do to enhance productivity, to create a conducive environment for the existing businesses to come to my state to establish so that I can enjoy the benefits of the new tax regime? No, they are not thinking about it. Go to the US and see the kind of fiscal regime they have there, the kind of federalism they run. Go to the Arab Emirates. You will see clearly, if California is putting in place laws that will not support enterprises, people are moving from California to Florida. People are moving to Texas. Over time, the inhabitants of California will be forced to take out Newsom to allow someone that can enable them get the environment that will allow productivity and allow companies to stay. The same thing with the Arab Emirates. UAE is practically a 99% Muslim country, indigenous people. I traveled to Dubai one day. How do they discourage people from drinking alcohol? They don't go burning businesses, destroying it. I checked into a hotel. I opened my hotel chiller. I saw a tot of alcohol, $70. I just did a mental calculation. I said, wow, what did they do? They used taxes to discourage people. But if you decide to drink, you will pay and government will make money out of it.
Yeah, all right. Mr. Barry.
Reasonable government in Nigeria productivity. We had a physical regime, a cultural regime, a waterfall arrangement between 1960 to 1966. I expect these 19 governors of the North and those in the South to think about how we can rejig and totally overhaul the cultural and physical framework of Nigeria back to what we had in 1960 to 1966 to enable the constituent units to look inward and be productive.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Barry. I want us to then, focus a little bit more, like you've just mentioned now, ways that with which we can be productive. So, what are steps that you would have recommended? There's people. If you mention the electricity, for example, and the fact that we're still producing very, very minimal level of electricity for Nigeria, and of course, that cannot help us be productive. Many people would argue that Nigeria cannot even afford to spend $3 billion or $5 billion or $10 billion to revive its power sector. So what would you recommend that the current administration does if it hopes to, at the end of the next 4 years and maybe 5 years, set Nigeria at a place where multinationals are thriving to some extent here in the country, and of course more of them are running to Nigeria to invest?
Okay, also the power sector should be further unbundled. The national grid should be unbundled so we can have regional grid and state grid. Very, very important. And if you look at what are the sources of energy power generation in Nigeria, the cheapest source of power generation, we have the thermal, which is powered by gas, and we have gas in abundance. What are we doing to generate gas resources to produce more gas and to be able to create more thermal generation centers to produce power? The hydro power is also very, very critical. Nigeria has a lot of waterways and that can be utilized. Coal, we have over $365 billion worth of coal in under our soil. What are we doing to utilize that? In the US, they still generate massive power using coal. In China, 40% of the industrial complex is powered by coal. What are we doing? Adding subnational unit. The governor should be thinking. We have massive proposals on what can be done across that value chain. If they are listening, we will help them. On the agro value chain, there's nothing that stopped them from having 8,809 agro-industrial clusters across the 8,809 electoral wards in Nigeria. Massive agro-industrial clusters within rural and sub-rural areas. Nothing stops us from creating. The current security architecture of Nigeria is not working. Chino will not go back to Kebbi State again or any of the northwestern states because of banditry and all manner of militancy. You saw the news the other day about a new group that came up. They are able to come up because the national security architecture is not working. Common sense is common sense. Between 1960 and 1960, we had a 100% security cover over Nigeria. Why? Because the regions control their own security. And we can replicate the same thing. Yeah. We want to implore the Bola Tinubu government to do something about security. And how do they do it? Every electoral ward should be allowed to nominate 100 of their sons who are honest, who are good, under what we call the agro rangers. Train them and put them under the control of National Security Advisor and the governors of each of the state. We will have 889,000 new agro rangers. Train them. After training them, provide them with AK-47, provide them with drone, post them back to man the agro-industrial clusters. In every local government area, put 4 armored carriers and the 3 truck-mounted machine guns. Put this, let me tell you what will happen.
Yeah. So instead of Mr. Barry, so we don't go into the little details here and there. I'm sure there's people who would also counter, with the agro rangers idea, and say that, we maybe should just invest more in our current security architecture, instead of, agriculture more.
Our current security architecture is flawed. See,
here's what I'm asking. This is what I'm trying to get. The key points that we should focus on, all right? If you say security, okay, power, infrastructure, the current administration is going to be 2 years old in a bit. The only major significant things that we can point to are the ending of petrol subsidy and, of course, the Naira unification when they came into office, the student loans as well. And just to mention, the president did sign an electricity bill in 2023 that enabled states, I believe, to be able to generate their own power. And if they're still not doing that, then, they have their own reasons. But what would be the key points to focus on? That the current administration should have said to themselves that we have no other things that we want to do, but want to ensure that these key 4, 5, 6 things are fixed in the next 4 years. If we have to take loans, we'll take loans. If we have to, create new bills in the National Assembly or new laws, we'll do it. But these 4, 5, 6 maybe key things must be fixed if we want to, see any headway.
One, insecurity. We need to tackle the insecurity in Nigeria. We need to totally dismantle the current architecture that we are running and go back to what works for us. And we know the truth. Even the current governor of Zamfara State stated it, that if we have the political will, that we can destroy the bandits in 2 weeks. And I agree with him because we've done the numbers, we've looked at the security is indigenous. We must have to make it, hand over security back to the people. Lawful terror, unlawful terror, lawful terror, it has unlawful terror. Number 2, we need to build up our power infrastructure. There's no rocket science about power generation and distribution. The states should also look inward and try to create captive power generation and distribution clusters within their domain under a PPP framework. That must be done. Power. Then issue of transmission and logistics and storage and creating agro clusters must be done. Let me tell you, with an investment of $15 billion under this agro cluster arrangement, we will generate about $109 billion annually from that sector alone. These 3 critical areas, in terms of transport infrastructure, I'm giving you an example of a rail route that can be done easily within the next 5 years that will cost us $5.2 billion. We don't even need to wait for the federal government. The governors within these contiguous states can easily champion it. We already have the framework, the template, the document. If they call upon us, we will hand it over to them. What will be done, how it can be done, when it can be done, the partners and the parties that will be to it, and how the funding can be raised. Very easy peasy. But the truth is, on Sariki, we come on online every time, and I must commend you guys on News Central because we've always been hitting on news services. Yeah, I wish these guys will sit down and think about how do we do this things. And there's no big rocket science about it. Nigeria has an infrastructure development master plan that clearly says that we will have to have over $2 trillion investment over the next 30 years to bring Nigeria to the level of second world economy. That simply means $100 billion investment annually. This investment cannot come through physical revenue. We can easily raise this money through diaspora Nigerians. Then we need to put in place the conducive environment to attract that capital. And like I said, insecurity must be tackled. Infrastructure, power infrastructure must be fixed. The issue of logistics and transportation must also be fixed. And then again, the most important, which I think is even important for them, massive electoral reform. Massive electoral reform that will give people confidence. Someone, those states today will be inaugurating the election and operate and succeed under such level of electoral banditry. Never.
All right, Mr. Berry, let's look at the fact, all of this can also be looked into, especially in comparison to our debt profile. We've talked about borrowing, we've talked about fixing the economy, and don't forget that this present administration has said that there is no money, okay, and that Nigeria is broke. We've heard that many times. Aside from the fact that there was a recent statement that $5 billion was used to fix the vice president's house in Lagos. But as of September 2023, the debt profile of Nigeria grew from 87.9 trillion naira to 87.3 trillion naira to 87.9 trillion naira, which means that in the past few months, this current administration has borrowed at least 600 billion naira. So far, so good. The impact, we've not really seen it that much. How do you think the international community, who are equally following up with these stories, we did see one that came from New York, articles from the international community where they talked about the hazardous nature of doing business in Nigeria. How do you think the international community would be more than willing to come back and invest in Nigeria when our debt profile is rising and not forgetting to there are stories of others who are leaving? How do we manage this ego or this particular situation we find ourselves in?
Leveraging and borrowing in itself is not a bad thing. The question you should ask yourself, what are you borrowing to fund? Most of the funds that we have borrowed over the last 9 years, we have borrowed and freighted away. The external debt profile grew from $10 billion to $42 billion under Buhari. What did they do with the dollar borrowing? They created 23 trillion naira by way of means, printed $65 billion equivalent of naira, and they practically looted everything. There is no asset tied to it. I give you an example. If you're borrowing to enhance infrastructure and it's tied to projects that will be able to repay itself, we won't be into the kind of problem we have today. The world is not against us borrowing. We are against borrowing to loot. I give an example. To do clusters, agro clusters across Nigeria will take about $15 billion, $6 million per cluster. Each cluster will be able to generate about $42 million annually under a mission, community, private, public partnership arrangement. If we put in place the structures, the dynamic structures, the transparent structures, Akiwumi Additional and the rest of them will fund it directly. And if you put in $15 billion in that sector to attract $109 billion annually, it's a good investment. I give you an example again, the railroad I mentioned. We've done the numbers. It will take $5.2 billion to do. If you borrow, of course, it will come by way of $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion equity contribution. We've done the numbers, we put the structures in place, and the rest will come by borrowing, 25-year borrowing. That loan will be repaid under 7 years, under a design, build, operate, and transfer arrangement. If we are borrowing $5 billion under such arrangement, it's worthwhile. Let me tell you, Nigeria can actually attract capital investment of nothing less than $100 billion. From the diaspora say, look, we can get about $30 billion annually. But the problem is not the borrowing. The problem is that most of the borrowings are being done to loot 23 trillion. And it breaks my heart that we live in a kind of environment where people are so irresponsible, where people are so unaccountable. They just go out there, borrow money, put it upon the unborn generation, and they nobody asks question. Like if you look at America, the debt to GDP of America is even more than their GDP. Their debt profile more than their GDP. Go to Japan. But the problem is that they are not borrowing to consume. You can see clearly. Egypt borrowed. You can see clearly where Egypt put their money. Nigeria will borrow, you don't see where the money is. And that is very responsible. Borrowing is good. Leveraging is good. Leveraging financing can only be beneficial if we specifically tie it to projects that can catalyze production. And that is what we encourage them to do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think everybody will agree with that. There's nothing wrong with borrowing, but Nigeria continues to, increase its debt profile without necessarily pointing to anything, that we've achieved with all that money. I really want Nigerians to have some hope in the current administration, and be able to point out some things that we'll be able to achieve in the next 4 years. If they don't get re-elected in 2027, there has to be something that we can say, well, we've achieved. Or at least they've set us on the path, towards, something. And if we have to borrow to do that, then at least the government should be able to point to the positive aspects of that borrowing. If we're borrowing $5 billion from the World Bank, from the African Development Bank, because we want to, fix some level of infrastructure, we want to fix power, we want to fix, tackle insecurity, there has to be something that we are borrowing for. Just before we let you go, quickly, share your thoughts on the controversy concerning Dangote Refinery. IPMAN, they eventually got to some agreement yesterday. And of course, the price of petrol. We still are likely going to be buying petrol for above 1,000 naira, maybe 1,200 naira at some point. And many, many Nigerians are having to deal with that reality. So quickly share your thoughts on where we are currently with the whole petroleum sector and Dangote Refinery.
Before I answer the Dangote question, let me go back to history. A time was in this country when we were practically importing all the food juice that we are drinking. Five Alive was being imported by Coca-Cola until the Lebanese, the Asians came in and set up Chivita, the Chi factory. They started producing Chi production. I at a cheaper price than Five Alive and even better quality. Nigerians abandoned Five Alive and started patronizing cheap because they had most of their raw materials from Benue State and the rest of Nigeria. Coca-Cola was practically forced to buy 55% of chi for over $50 million. If Dangote Refinery is producing white petroleum products at a cheaper price, and which is supposed to be so, than any imported products into Nigeria, nobody will be talking about, oh, products are being imported, importation should be discouraged and everything. And if you look at it competitively, based on the numbers, Dangote should actually be selling cheaper than imported products. If imported products are coming in cheaper, then there's something wrong with what they are doing. It's a problem we have with cement production. 99% of raw materials required to produce cement is in Nigeria. Yet the cost of cement in Nigeria is higher than the cost of cement comparatively in even other West African countries. Why is this so? The cement manufacturers in Nigeria is the only place where you have earning before interest and tax and depreciation allowance of 58%. Other global cement manufacturers, like the Sino Group, that is 10 times bigger than anything you have in Nigeria, have their EBT that between 70 to 25%. So the question is, all this rigmarole, all this issue see, let us face facts. I so much believe in transparent and open and accountable competition. If we are doing the right things, if we have the right one, there's nobody who is refining at the mega level that Dangote Refinery that should be selling more expensive petroleum products than the imported ones. And allowing the window to be open, we enhance checks and balances. There was when Yar'Adua was alive, one thing Yar'Adua did to checkmate them was that Yar'Adua also opened the window for cement importation. So that if at any point in time those local manufacturers started misbehaving, they can flood the market and bring them to do the right things. When there is no transparency, when there is no open competition, when there is no free entry and exit, monopolies or oligopolies will play games, and we should not allow that to happen in Nigeria. Whatever the arrangement or agreement they've had with IPMAN, it is very, very good. But in the long run, we have a structure, an arrangement that will make petroleum products sell for less than 600 naira for 1 liter, whether it is aviation fuel, whether it's PMS, whether it is gas oil in Nigeria. If this government is a listening government, we will help them to put in place that structure. But that structure will require transparency. That structure will require accountability. That structure will eliminate the rent-seeking and criminality in the oil and gas sector. Are they ready for it?
All right. Anyway, I think we've spoken well on this particular topic. Hopefully, we'll get to see if a few more companies would stay in Nigeria and not leave. Thank you for your time, Mr. Nameka.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I think the key thing, that I believe everyone is trying to establish, as we x-ray the different policies and the laws and the bills that are being passed by the current administration, the core thing that every Nigerian really is just trying to understand is, are these things going to work? In the next 4 years, where are we going to be? I don't think anybody expects that, there's a magic wand that the government has, and once they, swoosh, Nigeria would be better. Nobody expects that. But are we wasting the next 4 years just waiting in vain? Are we going to get to 2027 at the end of, this administration's 4-year tenure and realize that we've really achieved absolutely nothing? The country has seemingly just gotten worse. And that is the anxiety that the average Nigerian lives with every single day. For those who still have hope and faith that the current administration knows what it's doing, there's many people who have given up, on what the current administration's plans are. And, for me, I always try to get guests to establish what the key things are that you believe the government should focus on. If they're going to achieve any type of significant economic growth in the next couple of years, what are the key things that you should be able to look at and say, okay, yes, we've gotten this one right, we've gotten that one right. And if we don't see it, then it's heartbreaking. Anyway, let's take a very short break, and when we come back, we, of course, would be moving more into Breakfast Central this morning. Stay with us. Welcome once again. The Ondo State gubernatorial election is set to hold on Saturday, November 16th, 2024. With 2,053,061 registered voters expected to cast their ballots across 3,933 polling units in the state's 18 local government areas. Major contenders include the incumbent governor, Lucky Ayedatiwa of the All Progressives Congress, former Deputy Governor Agbola Ajayi of the People's Democratic Party, and Akinboye Bamidele of the Social Democratic Party, SDP.
Well, the largest and politically significant LGAs, including Akure South and Ondo West, are anticipated to play crucial roles in the election outcome. This off-cycle election comes after Governor Rotimi Akeredolu's passing in December 2023, with Ayedatiwa stepping in as acting governor. Well, joining us this morning is political scientist and a fellow at the Nigeria Academy of Letters, Mr. Aki Oshutokun. Thank you so much for being here with us and availing us your time. Let's take a look at a recent survey. Just yesterday, you did have a survey that came out, especially for Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development, CJID, highlighting a troubling trend of distrust towards electoral processes and institutions. Now, only 36% of respondents expressed confidence in the elections being conducted fairly and also credibly. Let me start off first. As an election scientist, do you see this trend as well? We saw a lot of discrepancies in Edo State. We also had heard of what took place in other parts of Nigeria. What's your take on the elections as we head towards it, especially this weekend?
First principle, so to say. You mentioned the figure of those we are expecting to vote on Saturday. And the figure that you mentioned was over 2 million. Now, let me make a prediction. The total number of voters who will come to vote and the quote unquote on Saturday is not likely to, we are not likely to get up to 600,000 voters. The implication of this, because this trend is consistent across the length and breadth of Nigeria, is that right from the word go, voter registers were inflated. It's not a reflection of the voters in each state. If you go across the elections or come across the election, and the last Edo State, I don't know, I can't remember offhand now, the actual number of people who voted, but it was about maybe 20 or 30% of so-called registered voters. The implication of this, as I said, is that there has been an element of rigging or distortion which is consistent with population figures in Nigeria. All figures, population figures, these figures, they are all fake. Now, and I'm not talking theory, right? Many years ago, anytime they are going to do census or something like that, right? In my own community, which is consistent with what happens in other constituencies, is that the community leaders will be invited to make donations or contributions so that they can take care of the census officials who are coming. Taking care is outright bribe. So they inflate the figure. I'm telling you, it's not theory. This is what I'm not ashamed to say that. I took part in it. And every community in Nigeria, if there's any way you can verify it, I can tell you that across the length and breadth of Nigeria, voter, whatever they want it, are highly inflated. Now, look at Lagos State, for instance.
Just to confirm, you are saying that you have taken part in also inflating voter numbers before?
Forget about that. Is not the issue. The issue here is I'm telling you that across board, right? Across board, I'm telling you I've witnessed it before. I was going to mention Lagos. What was the total vote count in Lagos in the last general elections? If you go and see it, it will be a fraction of maybe the millions that are on the voter register. The same thing, the last Edo State election. How many people voted? Go and check how many people voted in the Edo election and compare it with the registered voters. So this is on and on. I mean, so this, unless we want to look the other way, but this is what has been happening. People call it low voter turnout. That there is nothing like the low voter turnout. What usually comes out in the day of the election is the reality of the number of voters, contrary to what is the registered voters or whatever it is. So right from the word go, the election has been compromised.
All right. I also want us to, in the interest of time, I apologize, for jumping in like that, but I also want us to talk about credibility of the elections. Since the Edo State elections happened, there have been numerous reports, by independent analysts and, of course, NGOs that have expressed how much dissatisfaction exists with the Edo State elections. And, of course, the PDP is currently in court. Do you expect it to be different with Ondo State? INEC has a lot of questions that must be answered as to the credibility of the electoral process.
It's not going to be different. It's going to be the same. And we are going to find precisely the trend that this is what this room, for the manipulation of results. In the first place, is the wrong number of inflated figures that have been so-called registered in the first place. Look, Edo State, as nobody is surprised with the election. There are some people, somebody like Atedo Peter came out to relate his own experience. Now, will that kind of person, be crying foul where there is none? Answer to that, of course, is no. I was the Director General of the Peter Obi campaign in the last election. So I'm more or less in first-hand witness. I saw what happened. And how it's different from what at the end of the day in Lagos State, even though Lagos State, quote unquote, was won by Labour Party, but the real figures of those who voted, of the number of votes, for instance, that the Labour Party had, was grossly, reduced. So what they tell you, okay, but Labour Party still won, maybe won with 30 or 40 or 40, they are ready to concede that, because the number of votes you need to, eliminate will be too much. So, as I said, it's a pity if Nigerians are reduced to a situation in which nobody has any, belief or trust, in the electoral system. I'm even surprised that we don't find candidates, other than the candidates of APC, who are going out to spend their money, knowing fully well that they will spend some more, the job with your party. Or spend money on all sorts of logistics and things in the election proper. Then they will go to court and start spending another thing for a result that has been already predetermined. So because judiciary are equally implicated in. So I don't know for how long this country will remain like that.
Mr. Chisaku, I mean, you've made mention of so many things in the line of this response you've granted us. But I want to break down a few questions to you, but let me ask first off. There is a particular name that continues to resound, especially in the ears of everyone in Ondo, especially the youths. And I'm talking about Mrs. Oluwatoyin Babalola, who happens to be the reg in Ondo. There have been statements made that she is very close to the APC, and as much as they've called for her resignation, for her to be removed right before the elections. INEC says that would not be possible. What's your take on vote buying? I mean, you just said that they already know the winner and so on and so forth. What do we have to say about this trend that's ongoing where you do have politically impacted people working with INEC? What's your take on all of this?
The totality of it is that elections are manipulated. Look, in terms of manipulation of election results, the so-called REC, not other officials of the government, they are in reality agents of the ruling party or which party is going to rule. Fortunately, that is the case. Now, remember the case of the resident electoral commissioner for Abia State, that woman, vice chancellor. If you read the statement, what that woman said, again, you get the nation about all these things, how they are putting pressure on her to distort the election, to do this kind of work. That is that is another evidence of how things, but these officials you are talking about, I have no faith at all in what they say or that, are nothing. I like to be proven wrong. But according to a state in Nigeria where elections are becoming a farce and trending towards one party state. But here, this is the reality of election in Nigeria. But there's another aspect of it, to be fair, that you can blame the electorates. In those states, there were authentic reports of people selling their votes, outright, maybe for 1,000 naira or whatever it is. But those ones, at the end of the day, the grand, manipulation of the results, of the election results, are done at a higher level. Of those who call it the red, the police, so this is where I'm not, confidence whatsoever.
Mr. Shotago, what's your sorry to butt in? What's your faith in the current judiciary led by Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kekereekun?
Well, I mean, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. She has been in the Supreme Court for quite a while now. But it's somebody I know personally, so please, I don't want to go there. But we'll see, she has an opportunity to prove herself. But most importantly, for personal reasons, I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm close family friends with them.
Okay. All right. We respect your stand on that. I mean, since you've made mention of that. But then again, one-party state is what everyone is starting to talk about, because it seems like every political party that's actually governed a state always ensures that they win, except for some places we've seen in the southeast where we have a different political party within, even though they've alluded that these parties are going to finally switch allegiance to that of the governor. But let me ask my final question to you. The elections are this weekend. Do you see voter apathy? Do you also see people selling their votes as well this weekend?
Sure, of course. But let me correct you. It is no voter apathy. It is a true reflection of the number of voters, the registered voters that will come out on Saturday. It will look to you as if there's a voter apathy when you compare the number of people who come out to vote and what is in the register. Right? Take take note and go and find out, go and see how it works out. You know, how those numbers, on some occasions, you will see 10% of people voting. Now, that 10% often is not the correct number. It is it's inflated. Look, Lagos, Kano, they all inflate the votes that are attributed to those places and all across board. You know, so when people talk about voter party, well, it is relative to the fraudulent figures that you had in the first place. Right? You just don't, I mean, it doesn't make sense to, not that it doesn't make sense. You know, I have empirical evidence to know precisely, you know, what is going on. So that is what Nigeria has become. You know, want to, and that's why people are desperate to get to, you know, you have ridiculous instances, you know, that judiciary, they are the ones now who make, who appoint governors, who appoint whatever they do, and of course, there's no judiciary to rectify, you know, whatever they are doing, because they are all together.
Yeah. All right. I mean, on the 16th, yeah, I guess we would all find out, you know, how things turn out for the Ondo State people and, of course, for the elections. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We hope to speak with you again right after the elections or just before the elections. Thanks for your time.
Thank
you. I mean, conversations continue this morning. We're going to take a quick dive into the newspapers next and share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. Stay with us. And now let's get into the newspapers this morning and share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria this morning. We're joined by Ikechukwu Amechi, the publisher of the niche newspapers. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Also, good morning. Joe, how are you today?
Well, I'm alive and kicking. That's what matters, I think. As long as we see each day, we take it one day at a time.
Absolutely. All right, let's kick off on the leadership this morning as quickly as we can. Northern Democrats reject parliamentary system. It says here experts seek regional front against Lakurawa, the, in quote, new terror group. But of course, many analysts have said that they're not new. They've been in existence for many years, since 2018 or even earlier. They've been there, growing. In Saudi, Tinubu calls for end to Gaza war. Man kills family members over and himself over Trump's victory. Court nullifies Ebonyi PDP's congresses. We can also find here, you can redeem judiciary's image. CJN tells judges. Okpebholo takes over as Edo governor today. Those are the big stories on the leadership this morning.
All right. Away from the leadership, let's move to Daily Independent. Daily Independent is the next newspaper we're going to look at. On the front page of Daily Independent, it says 765 flights cancelled, 19,250 delayed in Nigeria in 6 months. That could be the reason why we have an empty airport. Delta Airlines tops flight delays among foreign carriers. Dana Airlines leads local operators with 69% delays. Oh, wow. Okay. IPMAN, Dangote reach agreement on direct petrol supply. Focus on governance. Stop assaulting opponents. Atiku tells Tinubu. Edo APC Transition Committee submits report, 6 probe of Obaseki. Have they found him? Defunct Heritage Bank, NDIC, that's NDIC, begins auction of landed properties and hotels. Let's take just one more because of time. Varsity education at risk if proposed tax reforms are passed, according to ASU. And then this final one, education tax remittance to TED Fund in 2024 hits 1.5 trillion naira. Okay, so that's all the story we'll take from Daily Independent.
All right, and I think quickly we can look at what the Punch has for us. Punch this morning says petrol pump price may drop as Dangote and marketers sign deal. Marketers begin loading at refinery. NNPC ends 24 trillion naira annual fuel import as it patronizes Dangote. Tinubu's Onwulu Abiodun, former governors Lord Bakari at 70. Obaseki hands over to Okpebholo today as it pardons 10 inmates. Federal government spent 19 billion on presidential planes in 15 months. Ondo governorship polls, parties perfect vote-buying plans as candidates may step down. Quickly to Mr. Amechi this morning. I'm not sure, there's so many of them, but I think we can quickly start with the story on Lakurawa. As experts seek regional front against Lakurawa. That's on the leadership newspapers this morning. The new terror group, brand new shiny one.
Well, there's nothing new about Lakurawa. It's a question of the way we do things in this country. We don't need problems in the board. We allow it to fester, and all of a sudden, when it now becomes a very big problem, everybody will be shouting. Going by reports, I think it was even Vanguard of yesterday or 2 days ago that stated, and they were correct, that these guys have been around since 2018, and nothing was done. Of course, all attention was shifted to Boko Haram and all that. Now they have become a very big problem. So calling for regional, calling for this, the truth of the matter is that the Nigerian security forces seem to be overwhelmed, as it were, because each new revelation, of course, we've moved from Boko Haram. We didn't actually move, but of course, Boko Haram is there. We've had more additions. We have bandits. We have all sorts. And now this one has reared its ugly head again. That means that the security forces, the military and all others that have been combating all manner of terrorism, they are going to be stretched further. I don't know how it's going to be done. ISWAP is there, and all manner of terrorists. They have found Nigeria a very comfortable place to stay and operate and decimate our populations, because the last government, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, also played politics with security. There are some people, and that allegation has not been refuted, who believe that most of these people, particularly the bandits, were people who were brought into this country preparatory to the 2015 elections, hoping that the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, may not accept the results so that they will use them to unleash mayhem on the country. Now, Jonathan disappointed all of them, and it became a problem what to do with the armed men they have brought in to levy a war on their own country. So it has been there. I don't know what they mean by pulling regional forces together to combat them, but we'll see how far they can go. Nigeria is security-wise, and that's why I laugh anytime they tell us that Tinubu has succeeded in decimating the terrorists and taming all manner of terrorism in the country. I don't think it is true. I think we are even in a worse place right now than we were before Tinubu came in, because these guys have been ennobled and the problem is still there.
Arguably, I think a lot of people would agree with that. And the ability for new groups to even emerge, shows it's a very bad sign as to the capability of the military so far in decimating other terror groups. But hopefully they're able to put this one under control. The CJN is in the news. A couple of days ago, she was in the news, not for the the right reasons, but because the Lagos State government hosted her here in Lagos, and she was heavily criticized by most people for frolicking with politicians. But she's in the news this morning again on the leadership, says you can redeem the judiciary's image. CJN tells judges. Some people might argue that it should be the other way around. She should be the one who is responsible for redeeming the judiciary's image. But your quick response to that headline.
I don't see how the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudrat Kekereekun, I'm not sure anybody's taking her serious when she's talking about redeeming the image of the judiciary, because all she has done since she assumed that post, she's always putting the wrong foot forward. And like you rightly also pointed out, people have criticized her. For instance, going for the groundbreaking ceremony that was done by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, where the executive has taken it upon itself now to build houses for judges in Lagos. Now, the governor of Lagos State, of course, she's from Lagos State. The governor of Lagos State did a party for her, and she attended. Ordinarily, there wouldn't have been anything wrong with that, except also that I don't see. Okay, now that Donald Trump has been elected president of the U.S.,
yeah,
he has started appointing people to his cabinet. You won't see the communities where these people come from organizing parties, reception, going to church to do Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving for what? You are being called upon to serve. So why are people celebrating? But of course, that is if we talk now, they say, we are comparing oranges with apples. That this is U.S., this is Nigeria. But even if we say that it is our culture to do all this, the office of the CJN is a very peculiar office. It's a very peculiar office. Like Professor Chidi Odinkan pointed out, the Lagos State governor has a case that he's pending. He is a litigant, has a case in the Supreme Court, and you are hosting the head of the Nigerian judiciary, who you are likely going to appear before. How can you expect justice now from that kind of scenario? But of course, it didn't start from her. Don't forget that the predecessor, Ariwala, was all over the place. He attended a function in Rivers State when Wike was still the governor. And I think the governor of Oyo State, Makinde, where he is from, also hosted him like Governor Sanwo-Olu has hosted Kekereekun now. So, look, also, why we have three arms of government is for there to be separation of powers in a presidential system of government. Why there is need for cooperation, but these guys must act as check and balance on each other for us to have an effective governance. Now, what we have in Nigeria, whether you like it or not, is a very powerful executive arm of government with all others acting as if they are parastatals in the presidency.
Other arms of government, you know, acting,
The legislature led by the Senate and the President is not doing more than a parastatal in the presidency. Now the judiciary is also towing the same line. I don't know where our redemption lies, honestly.
Well, anyway, we're going to talk about that story in a bit later on, because a lot of Nigerians are reacting already on social media. Everyone is not happy with what they are seeing. And I mean, I think kudos to Odinkalu. He had gone back in memory gone back in history and brought out some of the chief justices of Nigeria and broke it down. And also, he put the rule out there, what is expected of a CJN. But let's look at one big story today. It seems to be the biggest story out of Nigeria, and it's on the front pages. Bola to be sworn in today as Transition Committee probes 410 billion naira debt. He hasn't entered yet. There's a debt waiting for him. It's in the cooler. In short, it is actually in the open. 410 billion naira debt. What do you make of the back and forth of the outgoing governor, the incoming governor? And most importantly, we hear it's 5 billion naira that's going to cost to have this ceremony. And there's a debt already.
Well, this is to be expected. The moment INEC declared him the winner of the election, rightly or wrongly, the day has come. There's not going to be a vacuum. It means that Obaseki will go and Bola will step in. Many people have argued that it would have been better if all the cases that are connected with this election are dealt with before swearing in the man who is now coming in. The implication now is that whether you like it or not, the moment Bola takes his oath of office today, he's going to start using the resources of Edo State to prosecute his case in court. That's the tragedy of our so-called democracy. But be that as it may, that is where we have found ourselves. The back and forth, how much they have spent in putting together this transition, 5 billion that was alleged by the Edo State government led by Obaseki, and now their own allegation that the state is owing 400 billion naira. It is neither here nor there. These allegations are bound to be fair. I expect in the next couple of weeks that the EFCC will also come and do their gara-gara.
Yeah.
They will come and pick up Obaseki, perhaps now keep him there for about 2-3 days.
Right beside Okowa.
And do the media trial, that's leak information, whether it is true or not, to the media, and the media will be awash with, Obaseki stole 1 trillion naira. At the end of the day, all these things will fizzle out. We are not serious with governance in this country. That is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Let Bola settle down to governance. All these things, all these.
But I mean, they're still important. You know, even EFCC needs to, carry out its investigation. If the state government needs to carry out its own investigation into the financial dealings of the previous administration, yeah, they should. Why, it might seem like a distraction is because, maybe 9 out of 10 times it eventually leads nowhere. It's mostly be media trial, that gets nowhere. So it might sound like a distraction.
Also, it is. Not that it might sound. It is. Because, look, yes, EFCC needs to do its investigation, and of course, now I expect that the new government will open the books.
Yeah.
And find out what it is. But look, why don't you get in first? Open the books and know what it is. So where did you get, even before getting in there, where did you get the 400 billion naira debt that you're talking about? I would have thought that what would have made sense, and of course, devoid of the dirty politicking that we should expect from a state like Edo, considering how the politics of transit or the politics was played, is that look, you get in there, open the books, know where you are, and that the EFCC must have also concluded their investigation before going to arrest anybody you are going to arrest.
Yeah.
It's not that no investigation or investigation has not been concluded. You go and pick somebody, of course, leak whatever you want the press to carry, and the whole place will be awash with, they said, Okowa, 1.2 trillion. If a man stole 1.2 trillion, the 1.2 trillion that was thrown out there, it has now been reduced to about 40 billion.
Yeah.
So does it make sense? So does it make sense? The FCC should, it was set up as a financial crimes commission, so it should do its work. But they can't do that work by propaganda. That is why it hardly wins any case, except Yahoo boys. It hardly wins any case because it does not have the capacity to do forensic auditing of the accounts, forensic investigations, as to have a watertight case that when you go to court, it is almost like you have secured conviction even before going to court. But here we are. So we are going to go through this process again. Ayo Fayose has been in court now for how long? And all these cases continue dragging. We can't continue doing the things the same way and expect a different result. Psychologists say that's the definition of madness. You cannot continue doing the same thing the same way and then you expect a different result. It doesn't happen. So there's nothing going on in Edo State that any discerning political observer cannot say, look, this is predictable.
Yeah. All right, quickly, the Punch this morning, I'm expecting that a lot of people do not believe this, but it says here, petrol pump price may drop as Dangote and marketers sign deal. Marketers to begin loading at refinery, and NPC ends as 24 trillion naira annual fuel import. Your quick reactions, to that as well. I saw, a quick analysis yesterday, someone sharing that the landing cost of petrol, had then been officially dropped. Maybe dropped just a tiny percentage from what it was before to what the new landing cost would be. But there's no sign really that the petrol price will drop below or significantly below what it currently is. So do you believe that headline, or Nigerians once again being deceived?
Well, the question that I will ask those who believe that is that what will make it reduce?
Well, they said international prices.
See,
international global oil prices.
We love deceiving ourselves. Of course, all through last year, the mantra there was that if Dangote Refinery comes on stream, then the pump price of petroleum will crash to 400 naira. It has not happened. The Dangote Refinery has come on stream, and rather than reducing, what we found out was that petrol price officially from them is 997 naira. So what is going to make it to come down? Also, don't forget, there is even a prediction again today that naira may depreciate to about 1,900 something. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Even if we agree that even if Dangote gets all the crude he needs from Nigeria in naira, like President Bola Tinubu has said it will be, there are other things that are also added in the production of, in the refining of crude. And as long as we have this unstable exchange rate, I don't see how the pump price of petrol, whether it is produced locally or imported, is going to, because like you also said, the landing cost is the only thing that we're going to take away from the distance. And how much is the landing cost? It is even marginal. The only thing, and now we have only Dangote. We have succeeded in creating another monopoly in the oil downstream sector of the oil industry. We have a monopoly. Also, anybody who tells you that the pump price of petrol is going to reduce when we have a monopoly, when the 3 refineries owned by Nigeria, none of them is working, tell the person to go and check again. We will come back here, perhaps before December, and I will ask you, what are we saying? Oil price, the pump price of petrol cannot come down from what it is now. We will be lucky if it, in fact, stabilizes at what we have now. I doubt if it will.
So more tough times for Nigerians, especially as we approach the Yuletide season. Don't forget that you also have the foreigners who will be coming back into Nigeria with a lot of dollars and pounds. So the exchange rate, no doubt, looking at how it's going to impact heavily. You do recall that sometime last year, about this time as well, that's when we started seeing huge impact on Nigeria's currency, the Naira. But then again, as we wrap things up from the papers, it's also good that we look back to one of the conversations we did have. And I did mention that Nigerians are already reacting to that story. It's got to do with the story of the CJN attending a civic event staged or put together by the Lagos State governor to celebrate her swearing in. Many have asked questions that, is this normal? But then again, Professor Odinkalu did put out a quote, not just a quote, but he also put out one of the rules from the Nigeria's constitution, especially that which has got to do with swearing in a CJN. And part of the rules there, I don't know if we can get that up, made it clear that if you're a CJN, you have to be very careful to ensure that you do not just go anywhere, including events and so on and so forth. And if you must go, you need to do well to ask yourself, what's it going to tell about my office? And what's it going to say about me as the Chief Justice of Nigeria? But then again, she did go, and Nigerians took to social media. They were reacting. The reactions were quite different. Many said she shouldn't have done that. But many are more concerned about the fact that it seems clear that the judiciary, the legislature, are all under one political party. That's what they've said. That's what Nigerians are saying. But let me get your reaction to that as well, finally, before we wrap things up.
Joe, like I said earlier, there are rules. There are rules. And Odinkalo rightly quoted one of the rules of what is expected. Look, every office has its own, will I say, constraints. The office of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, now she's like a god. She's like a god who should be worshipped. Because, look, apart from God, it is only the judiciary, a judge, that can pronounce that you should die. And you are rightly executed. And it is according to law. So the Chief Justice has the power of life and death in her hands. And therefore, she is not the ordinary mortal that we see. There are things you don't do. In as much as you want to socialize as a normal human being, the position you occupy dictates otherwise. Why? Because like Odinkalo said, it is simple. Also, if I am the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and also my friend has a case before me, and this also has invited me to a party where I hosted him, and all manner of things. I am only a human being. It is only natural that this my friend who has done so much for me. And that's the same way people are talking about an Nyesom Wike building
houses for the judiciary, yes.
For judges.
Yeah.
There is no way that you won't be beholden to the people who are patronizing you. It is not possible. So what the Chief Justice of Nigeria did, whether they want to admit it or not, should not be. And we've had Chief Justices in this country until this, what do you call it now, until this APC came into office in 2015. We have people who, where did you see all the Chief Justices before now
frolicking with
politicians?
Yeah. Well, they're going to take you back to Onogen. They said, I mean, he was there. He was hosted by, is it Rivers or Delta State?
No, but
and then, of course,
the point is,
but then again,
Onogen or no Onogen, you know, I think if it was wrong, then it's wrong now. You know, if anybody complains that, you know, Onogen erred, you know, by associating with anybody, it's still the same, you know, standard that must be applied now. But we need to go. We have an ad that needs to run. Thank you very much for joining us as always. And of course, you know, we'll continue to expand this conversation. Remember, you could always tweet at us at News Central TV. Let us know your thoughts on these major conversations happening across Nigeria. It's time for us to say goodbye. We'll be back here again tomorrow morning. I am Osaogi Ogbawa.
And I'm Joe Hanson. I'll join you at 9 a.m. for News Now.